Hello and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. My name is Damla Ogunshaki, and this morning I'm starting with Vanguard on the paper review. Vanguard is leading with tension as Tinubu declares state of emergency in Rivers, appoint Vice Admiral Ibas as administrator, suspend Fubara Odu lawmakers for 6 months. Rivers joined Plateau, Ekiti, Borno, Yobe, Adamawa as emergency rule states. South leaders pan their flay emergency rule in Rivers. You can see that story on page 8 of Vanguard newspaper. And here we have a picture showing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu addressing the nation on the crisis in Rivers State, where he declared a state of emergency in the state in Abuja yesterday. Now, on page 5, Wike revokes land housing, PDP's new national secretariat complex. Revocation attempt to silence opposition. That's coming from PDP. On page 9, Tinubu lacks a power to suspend a governor. That's coming from PDP. Federal government confirms 400,000 tuberculosis cases in 2024. Above the banner, on page 9, Dangote meets Edun on Naira for crude deal, business environment. Lawyers Atiku, George, others fought emergency rule declaration. Bill mandating Facebook, bloggers, others to have offices in Nigeria passes second reading in Senate. Delta Governor, oil ministers, others for Vanguard's local content conference in Warri. You can see that on page 12. And we move to The Guardian from there. The Guardian is leading with reverse pipeline explosion may cost $35.3 million lost daily as state of emergency begins. PDP NWC kicks as Wike revokes Wadata Plaza new secretariat plot. Senate braces for backlash as social media bill scales a second reading. Osun APC warns governor, ministers to stop the marketing party for Adeleke. Over 34 million citizens hungry require urgent help, says ECOWAS. Delivering affordable electricity beyond pledges and declarations. And directly below the banner, we have Dangote cement, salt, sugar businesses lose 423 billion naira to naira crisis. Weak naira pushes the federal government state allocation to 15.2 trillion naira amid hunger. Lastly, on the Guardian newspaper, EFCC blames corrupt politicians, fraudsters for nation's bad image abroad. Now let's move to the Punch newspaper. Punch leading story this morning says emergency rule, soldiers, tanks move into Rivers government house. NBA lawyer says the suspension's illegal. PDP Labour Party Atiku Pandem slams Tinubu. National Assembly to debate President's state of emergency today. Fubara blames pro-Wike lawmakers. Ibaz takes over. Wike versus Fubara, Governor, Assembly members, turbulent road to suspension. Here we have three photo stories with the rider that says Libya to deport over 170 Nigerians. 14. 9 mobile accused of blocking subscribers from switching operators. Mobile's father asks court to quash legal advice freeing Naira Mali. National Assembly probes Cameroon's alleged encroachment on Nigeria island. Above the banner, we have federal government deducts state 800 billion naira allocations to pay foreign debt. Attack on discos. Nigerian military is lawless. Full import. NNPCL loses a bid to stop Dangote's 100 billion naira suit. You can see that on page 16. And lastly, the Nation newspaper this morning is leading with Fubara and Mawule gone with Tinubu's emergency declaration. Ibas is Rivers administrator for 6 months. Breaking of export terminal pipeline triggers invocation of Section 305. There's a statement here. It says, no good and responsible president will stand by and allow the grave situation to continue without taking remedial steps prescribed by the Constitution to address the situation in the state, which no doubt requires extraordinary measures to restore good governance, peace, order, and security. You can see more of this inside the Nation newspaper on pages 2 to 4. PDP, CBN, INEC, NUC, NNPCL, others lose plots of land in Abuja. FCT, no going back on the crew revocation, back on the revocation of 4,794 properties. You can see that on page 4. Court dismisses NNPCL's objection to Dangote suit on import license. You can see that on page 25. House of Reps passes tax reform bills. Senate passage expected. Reinstated Oshun Council Chairman Gelt Algonza backing. Bill to regulate social media scales second reading in Senate. Okweibolo to probe Obaseki over $10 million observer fund. You can see that on page 26 of the Nation newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies. Join us after the break as our guest will be analyzing some of the stories. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is today's news on Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki. Joining me to analyze the front pages of the dailies is Mr. Gbenro Olajigbe. He's Executive Director of Emergency and Risk Alerts. Hello, Mr. Gbenro.
Good morning. It's a pleasure being with you.
Yes, and this morning we are starting with River State. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday, we have the big stick to resolve the 2-year political crisis ravaging River State by declaring a state of emergency. What do you think about the president's nationwide broadcast and the declaration of a state of emergency in River State?
Well, to start with, let us not lose the sight that about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled on the issue, and the Supreme Court is the final court in the land. It has ruled on the issue, and the Supreme Court demanded the enforcement of its order. And if you look at the situation, Governor Fubara has taken steps to address the concern and the rulings of the Supreme Court. But his effort has been frustrated. But then, let me quickly state that the declaration of state of emergency by the president yesterday is constitutional. But the remover of the governor and the members of the House of the Assembly, or the suspension as he call it. The suspension as he call it is illegal, is unconstitutional, and as a matter of fact, is undemocratic. The president should not have gone through that. Let me tell you, give an idea of what the president should have done. President Tinubu should have declared that state of emergency for that length of 6 months. And it should have gone further to state that within these 6 months, I am setting up an arbitration panel or reconciliatory panel that will address the outstanding issues between the governor and the members of the State Assembly. Everybody will have clapped for the president for that ingenuity, for that strategic leadership. But he had that opportunity, he floundered it. Yesterday, he behaved as somebody that was partial, that have taken position. If you look at his statement, how he heaped all the blames on the governor, Fubara, you will know it was obvious that he took a position, and that wasn't a demonstration of leadership as it ought to be in a critical time of crisis like this. What you need to resolve problem is leadership, not using hammer to treat every problem as if they were nailed. If the same president condemned former President Obasanjo 2 decades ago for taking such position, and he himself has taken the same position almost 20 years after, that means that he hasn't learned anything. That means that there is no progress of thought. That means that there is no progress in articulation of what leadership should represent for a very big, varied, and vital country like Nigeria. So those are the things that weaken me and possibly others in the decision of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu So to me, it was a sad day for democracy. It was a day that he had opportunity to demonstrate what leadership entails, but possibly because of vested interest, he floundered it.
But Mr. Barrow, what's the process of calling for state of emergency, and how has it played out in the River State?
The state was not compliant with. The state was that if there is a crisis in a particular part of the country, whether state, whether a specific region, or any part thereof, the process is for example, in this way, the River State. The River State ought to have a government. We meet with the House of Assembly, and they will now write the president. Look, we have a problem that is beyond us. We cannot solve this problem without it becoming a disastrous event. We invite the president. My mention of this president, National Assembly. So the problem, the president tried to Fubara didn't convey to ability to resolve this problem. So it was impossible for Fubara to have discharged what the president or the constitution expected him to do. And that is why I told you now clearly what a leader would do in that type of situation. He can go ahead and proclaim the declaration of emergency, but then he has no power constitutionally, legally, democratically to remove elected governor and the deputy. So, and like I have suggested earlier, what the president ought to have done is to appoint an administrator that will manage the country, the state, while at the same time, Fubara retains his job, members of assembly retains their job, and the president will set up a part. They will not perform any duty as not prescribed by the proclamation of the state of emergency. He can use that opportunity, that 6 months, to have a reconciliatory meeting, set up a reconciliatory, a political and impartial reconciliatory committee. And now they know that it's backed by law of emergency, that the president can do that, and they will comply, they will obey. And then within that 6 months, the differences can be reconciled. That is what leaders should do, and not create problem or deepen the one that is already existing. I don't see anything that this thing is bound to solve, aside from diminishing the democratic credential of the president, which he has touted over the years. Okay, he came out to criticize Obasanjo for doing the same thing, and he has fallen into that same decisional pit now. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, Mr. Barrow, you've mentioned
practice.
Yes, you've mentioned that during Tinubu's time as governor of Lagos State, the then president Obasanjo, he called for state of emergency in Lagos. Can you analyze the two scenarios and what is actually missing here for people to be saying that the president did not do it?
The scenario was that there was almost near anarchy by the non-respecting the constitution of creation of local government and every other thing. And to the president, he saw that as a state of anarchy, when governor will lead the crusade of not complying with the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But let me equally tell you the difference now. The difference is that the Supreme Court has ruled on this. What the president did yesterday was to confirm inability of the agency, of the institutions of government to enforce the Supreme Court ruling. That is what he did yesterday. What he did yesterday was to sit as an appellate court over the decision of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court judgment was not implemented. The responsibility of the federal government is to unleash its institutions and agencies to ensure that this is fulfilled. And given a deadline, it can give a deadline as a leader, and it can call a meeting that if you fail to meet all these deadlines, you will push the government to declare a state of emergency. And even if it declares such state of emergency, he has no power. I repeat, he has no power constitutionally, legally, democratically to remove a democratically elected official of another level of government. So the difference is very clear. That of Obasanjo was not a dispute between the executive and the legislature, and as a matter of fact, Tinubu at that particular time counted that as error. He cried out. As a matter of fact, when a state of emergency was declared, even in 2013, by President Jonathan, without removing the structure of government, the same President Tinubu went ahead to criticize Jonathan that he has no power to so do. And he was even doing worse now than what President Jonathan did in 2013. That is the crux of the issue. That is the crux of the matter. That is the unconscionable dictatorial tendency that was found on the nation yesterday. And I repeat, it was a sad day for democracy, for democracy. A sad day, and of course, a shameful day for anyone that calls himself Democrats in Nigeria.
What's
They had opportunity to demonstrate ingenuity, to demonstrate leadership acumen, but it didn't. It was. I think his thought and decision was underlined by vested interests.
All right, let's go back to the days of the inauguration. Former governor of Ekiti State, Fayose, in a video during Fubara's inauguration, he warned him to not see the bad side of Wike, with how things have played out now from the time of the inauguration and when Fayose advised Fubara.
That is bad. When the people elect their leader is the leader of the state of River. Not for Fayose to be pinpointing how he should surrender the state to Wike. That is outright rubbish. It wasn't an advice. I am not saying that you shouldn't be loyal, but if the loyalty is to compromise the constitutional position of having people, we the people, as the electors of government, then it means nothing. In fact, Fayose kowtow for what I call the politics of prebendalism. It was a prebender politics, that it was a politics of godfatherism. That was what pushed that diminishing philosophy by Fayose. And it wasn't an atrocity concern for the progress of people and of Niger Delta, of Niger State. And if you have observed, one thing that is missing in this equilibrium that played out yesterday is the people. Now people vote has been wasted because the people they elected to govern them, it's not the one that will govern them in the next 6 months. It's not the one that will even preside over anything. Because it's an affront on the spirit of democracy, which is described by Jefferson as the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That government of the people was removed yesterday. That government by the people was removed yesterday. That government for the people, I don't know how to describe what happened yesterday in relation to that. But it was a very sad day for democracy. It was unconscionable attempt at diminishing the letters and spirit of democracy.
All right, there are currently throwback pictures of showing the new administrator of River State, Vice Admiral Ibas, and and the FCT minister Wike. That throwback pictures of him flying around. What do you have to say about this? Will you say without things are now is the state back in Wike's camp with this new administrator?
Well, I'm not going to lay that charge because I don't have full proof evidence about that. But the fact is that they had relationship. I don't know whether the relationship was official, as demonstrated by the picture. Whether it was an official relationship when he was a governor, or private or personal relationship, or they have developed another one after office. So those are issues that I'm saying now, that when a decision like this is taken, people must see it as very, very apolitical. People must see it as rising above political expediency and consideration. People must see the altruism, the altruistic nature of that decision. And that is where President Tinubu got it wrong. By removing these people who are elected by their people. What he ought to have done, I repeat again, was to declare the state of emergency while the administrator continue to administer the state. He should have used the opportunity of that time. Those people will remain in office, but their duties in terms of security of people, in terms of their protection, responsibility for protection and security has been taken away from them. The responsibility for making law has been taken away from them. That was an apt opportunity for President Tinubu to say and demonstrate his leadership trait to the people by saying that during this 6 months, what I will do was to ensure a lasting peace in Rivers State, and in furtherance of this, coming as part of the speech, I am now constituting a panel of 9 persons who will look to how the fielding groups, the Kubara group and the representative group can be reconciled within that 6 months, and let's see the outcome. And it can even make a statement that if that is achieved and that will ensure sustainable peace, the proclamation might not even last the whole log of 6 months.
All right, Mr. Guerrero, what's Fubara's fate now? He's suspended for 6 months.
Well, I think it's still the governor. I can't decide, especially as far as I'm concerned, his constitution is illegal. His fate is go to court and challenge the illegality, the unconstitutionality of it, so that we enrich our jurisprudence in Nigeria. There are apt and evidence on that.
And let's talk about the administrator. Now, the appointment of a sole administrator in the state, it's something that, according to lawyers, cannot be found in any of the 320 sections of the 1999 constitutions.
No, we must equally recognize, it doesn't matter what you call it, but what the constitution prescribes is this. This is a carryover of what has been happening. That's why I'm saying that most of these things are not constitutional. When a part of the country has become so ungovernable that part cannot be presided over by the governor or anyone elected to manage that part of the country, whether at local government level or not. The federal government can, through proclamation of a state of emergency, can take over that place. And for the purpose of administration, but for the purpose of law, the National Assembly will make law for that part of this of that country. In this way, we make law for Rivers State if there is need for any law to be made. And as a matter of fact, there is actually need for administrators since it's a state. I don't know whether you call it administrator or whatever you call it, an appointee of a federal government that will carry out administrative function of that place, or like I said, that without removing the governor, there are certain things that the governor can do that may be purely administrative, but not ruling, not addressing the issue of crime or any other thing that the federal government during the period of declaration of emergency, we want the governor that is retained to do. They can no longer act as a full-fledged governor. That is what should have happened. Like, for example, civil servants need to work. They need to be accountable. They need to get their pay. Society infrastructure needs to be There must be infrastructural governance. Those will be presided over. So there must be somebody that will be an administrative and let me just say performance head or executioner of state of emergency that has been declared. But my challenge is that why do we
but Mr. Gbero, the former President Goodluck Jonathan's time, he declared a state of emergency for Adamawa, Yobe, and Borno states when he was the president. But he did not appoint, any. He did not, at any point suspend the governor of the state.
That is what I'm saying, that the governor can still be performing administrative function. What was taken away from the governors in Adamawa, Yobe, and Borno that time was their being at the head of security. That was taken away from them. Now the full responsibility to protect citizens and infrastructure can be that of the federal government. That's why I'm saying that there is no need to appoint administrator if you have not removed this. But now that you have removed him, but in the interim, there must be somebody that will be, albeit illegally, albeit unconstitutionally, there must be somebody that must hold that accountable position. That is, I'm not saying that is right. What should have happened was to reverse so that they continue the performance of that.
Let's end it on a lighter note with Mr. and Mrs. this morning. And the first person speaking is Mr. Mr. says, are you saying as the head of this family, my food is not ready? I don't care who is responsible. I'm ready to deal ruthlessly with the person. And Mrs. replied, your mother just left for the village. She forgot the kitchen key in her bag. Wow. I really love kitchens in the houses nowadays. Well, that's for Mr. and Mrs. Do want to like and follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. You can also visit our website, www.vanguardindia.com. My name is